Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross. With me, as always, is Mark Ailey. Mark, you were grinning over there. What is up?
No, it's football season, man. So I'm grateful for that. Today's guest, he was a college player, man.
Yeah, and today's guest, great episode, by the way. D3 player, Southside guy, and we didn't talk about this at all in the interview, and I almost wanted to go down this path, but when I was in the corporate world, when I was 26, having to hire 22-year-olds, I would definitely migrate to someone who did a D3 sport, right? Because it just shows a certain level of commitment. No one's going to watch that. You're a different breed if you do that. That is just pure passion, pure commitment. That is a different breed of someone who actually goes through that route. So I'd definitely migrate towards those people. When I was looking at resumes, that always stood out. I'd always want to say, okay, let's see what this person has to offer. And more times than not, you would get that hustler. You would get someone who was just, not everyone became a rock star, but you usually got that same energy, that same effort.
Yeah, there's that passion. Shout out to Chris Bulio. He was a D3, and I know a couple other ones as well too. But Chris being a past guest. Yeah, no, that commitment. I think when you're a D3, and I'm saying this coming from I never made it out of high school ball, but you're not going anywhere, right? You're not going to probably walk on to NFL. You're not going to get drafted most likely, but yeah, that commitment, that passion, and that translates to the work world and your effort, like you said. So I agree.
Yeah, it's also just at a young age, it's a different level of maturity, I feel too.
Agreed, because
you might still party a little bit here and there, but you still have that discipline where you have to be lifting at 6 a.m. or whatever it is.
Yeah, agree.
So, man, we are. This is a good episode. This is we have talked about air filters once before, but this time we do it for a while.
Well, yeah, we talked about it for a while, but he also has an interesting background of how he ended up where he's at today. And man, can you imagine working for a company that went from 400 to hundreds of thousands of units? It's just crazy. Whole Partners America, what they did, and ultimately what they sold for. So it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. Anytime you sell to Blackstone for $6 billion, you probably did all right.
Anytime you sell Blackstone, anything. Yeah, I had some coffee. I mean, gee, I did pretty good. Yeah, for sure.
So, all right, cool. Let's jump in here. What's the housing provider tip of the week? All
right, so kind of playing on this today, housing provider tip of the week is, again, we'll talk about filters, but you have to have some cadence to it. But I'm not going to go into how often you should put them in or that you should be doing it, but you should have that responsibility on the tenant in your lease. At least you have something, and you can ride with the filters. You can reimburse it for the filters, but if you at least put some ownership on them to do it, then if you could always tie back things, the repairs, or if they got an animal, they're going to have a lot more dandruff. It's going to be filtered more frequently. So if you put it out in the lease, it at least gives you the opportunity to come back and put that on them long term, whether it be for a chargeback or at least the responsibility for doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but yeah, today's guest, principal at Second Nature. He has extensive experience driving growth in both single and multifamily industry. He Apartments.com, which turned into CoStar. He had a couple of startups, worked for Home Partners America, ultimately ended up at Second Nature, where he's going to talk to us today about how he can benefit owners. Without further ado, why don't you introduce Bob Hansen, man? Welcome aboard. Hey, Bob, man, this has been a long time coming. So I was looking at some of my notes. We have, we talked about this last year when you and me I think we were in San Diego at an event, or we were somewhere, or San Antonio or something like that. We were talking about you had to come on and we tried connecting a couple of times. You kept not getting the link or whatever and so forth. So I'm excited that, and then we messed up on the actual scheduling a couple of times. So, I mean, this is a long time due, man. Thanks for
we had equipment breakdown one time too.
Equipment breakdown, breakdown. But yeah, this is the expectation for this for me is big. So how's it going, man?
Good, man. I think it all works in my favor. I was hoping to be on the 250th podcast. I feel like maybe we're close. Maybe I'm one below, one above. Who knows? But that was the goal all along.
Yeah, I think
well played, sir.
Yeah, that was good. So before we get going, born and raised on the south side, Mount Greenwood, but you're a Cubs fan. I just want to talk through that real fast.
Yeah.
That's something that you don't see that often. And I imagine it's going to be a conversation around your holiday table sometimes.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. I was kind of born into it, born into being a Cub fan, loyalist that stuck with my Cubs. My dad, retired Chicago police officer, even worked at Comiskey Park. So we would go to the ballpark. My dad too was a Cub fan, but he would get us in the ballpark before they even opened the stands to anyone, and we were still loyal. We rooted for our Cubs, and got autographs for just about everybody, but rooted for the other team for the most part.
Well, how'd you not? I mean, the neighborhood you grew up with. How'd you not become a fireman or a police officer?
My dad told me he worked 3 jobs just to put me and my brothers through Catholic grade school, Catholic high school, and for me not to repeat what he had done. And so for me, I think playing football, going to the St. Rita High School, big game this week against Mount Carmel. We'll see. Big team over there on 64th and Dante, but big matchup always. I think football allowed me to see some different things. I played football in college at a D3 school up in Lake Forest, and allowed me to kind of continue on that path. I think that's the reason why my dad pushed me to do something different.
Tom's a Catholic boy from the north side. Where'd you go there, Tom?
St. Pat's, baby. Woo!
There you go. I like it.
That's a mirror image up on the north side, at least in my eyes.
Well, I'm excited to have you on here, mostly because you bring this. When I think about networking, I think about you, man. Like, whenever I need to hire somebody, like you're like one of the first texts I send. Like, hey, man, you got a guy for this, or I don't know. You just always pop in mind because you have just such a natural. I consider myself a connector, but you just do this at a whole nother level. So that's one thing we're gonna dive in today. You have a very unique background when it comes to real estate and all the different things you've done. Ultimately, I want to talk about what you do now and the company you work for, which to me is an amazing company. So. Just starting off here, man, kind of tell us how you got into this. I think you started at apartments.com, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I spent about 10 years at apartments.com. When I first got there, we had launched a website called Rental Homes Plus. I started there a couple of weeks prior to that, got to know a good amount of single-family operators across the country. We essentially drove leads to those property management companies. They paid for our services. We drove leads to them. And the natural progression after having some success on the SFR side was onto the apartments.com side and there were, the multifamily area where it was a much larger team. So I moved there, did that for about 7 years, eventually becoming a regional vice president of sales, moved out to the West Coast. And when CoStar had acquired us, and I was looking to do something different at the time, and actually had a former client of mine reach out to me and say, hey, I know you're a Chicago guy working with this management company out of Chicago that's going to grow called Home Partners of America. Why don't you come run operations for us, and we'll teach you how to run property management. So yeah, that's how I got started. The SFR side into the multifamily side, doing SFR operator, and now back in the sales, selling into both the SFR and multifamily space. So yeah, pretty unique, I guess.
Is there any background you can share about, your apartments.com, CoStar, anything like, all these multifamily guys, they're competing to get awesome renters and all that. Is there any tricks or anything they should know about the back end of that space?
I think for apartments and also like cars.com was part of our company. I tend to think a lot of it was just a great brand recognition, right? When you have apartments.com, when people are going to do search and with SEO, right? The more eyeballs you can drive to a site, naturally having a name that aligns well with that should help you search pretty high on all those search engines and drive more traffic. Outside of that, I think it's just good people, good culture. Someone that they can trust in that you're going to deliver what you tell them you're going to deliver on. So yeah, I would stand behind that. I think that's been a theme for me wherever I've gone is, be upfront, be honest, don't make it gimmicky, right? And if people get to know you, right? They believe you and trust you, they buy from you typically.
But when you started there and you're having success, did you catch the real estate bug at all? And I ask because I too had a sales career. I was never tied to my industry though. I always looked at myself as a salesperson, and I like this industry, or I have connections here, so let's roll with it. But was there some point along the line with apartments.com where you're like, all right, I'm going to be a real estate lifer. Like, this is where I belong?
Yeah, it felt like once I was there and seeing the opportunity and the success and knowing where the market was going, it didn't make sense for me to kind of bounce around and do different things. And as I've gotten older, I've really appreciated the fact of kind of being able to go back and tap into networking groups that I was part of 5, 10, 15 years ago that, I kind of pivoted from the SFR to the multifamily back and forth. Utilizing those relationships and be able to come back to those has been super helpful versus leaving to just take a different sales position somewhere else.
I brought up in the beginning the whole networking piece of you, and where does that come from? Is that something you learned? Like, is that a trade? Like, I mean, how do you do it in a very? I'm hopefully I'm making you blush here. That's the goal. But like, you have this ease about you. Just talk with you. You know, you've had many meals together. Like, you bring people together. You connect people. Like, where does that come from? And how has that played a role in your career so far?
Yeah, that's interesting. My daughter, when she called me 10 minutes ago, asked what I was doing. I thought I was going to be on a podcast. She got really excited. She's like, "Can you mention my name?" So Lucy, I'm mentioning your name now. She's like, "Well, what are they going to talk to you about? Like the fact that you just run into people at the store who know you?" And so I was like, "Oh, exactly. We're going to talk about networking, right? Knowing people." I do think it comes somewhat natural to a degree. You know, from things like I've run a golf outing for 20 some years, was just to start off with friends and family, and then I was raising money for the Chicago Police Department and buying bulletproof vests, to now I do it for the local Palatine Youth Football League that I belong to. I'm a board member of. I used to do bus trips to Notre Dame where I would charge money and get a bus and get a bar. And, you know, our friends over at Waterhouse, you know, we used to go to Waterhouse and start up over there. And yeah, that was fun for me. But I think where it probably started was back to my roots on the South Side. You know, my grandmother, she was the assistant or the secretary for an alderman for 40 some years. My dad was a precinct captain, you know, helped him get in to know people and got him different opportunities to go do some different things. So I feel like you got to put yourself in a position to win. And for me, putting yourself in a position to win has always been getting to know people and opening up doors and just being who you are. And if you like talking to people and you're a good person and you do what's right, I feel like helping others out usually pays itself back to you double. At least that's been my experience.
How intentional are you when it comes to that, or is it more natural than intentional?
I'd say it's probably a mixed bag, but it sometimes feels natural. I'd say there's a lot of people out there I know that can get a lot more intentional in their questions to folks and diving like really deep. I'm probably not someone that if you ask people to describe him, they're not going to say like he's very like in depth in his discovery. I have a lot of like really good friends. I don't have a lot of best friends, but I have a lot of good friends that if they needed me or I needed them, I'd be there for them. But I'm probably not a guy that's going to sit there one-on-one and have a 2-hour conversation and get really deep with you.
Makes sense. So Bob, can you give us maybe some tips or just some thoughts for those who are looking to start their career? They want to go to these meetups, right? They don't have that outgoing personality. They might be a little introverted. They might be a little scared. They don't have much to show on their real estate investing journey, but they want to get in. They want to talk to people. They're walking in a room of 40 people, all strangers. Mm-hmm. Can you give some advice? Like, just like, hey, here's some tips to help make this situation a little easier. Because I think we take it for granted, right? Like it gets very, very easy after a while.
Yeah, for sure. You know, before I started my real estate, the one job I had in sales beforehand was selling sports tickets to Super Bowls and Masters and Final Fours. And I was like 23 years old. I'm like, hey, would you move down to Atlanta, Georgia, sight unseen, and run this office for us? And what I'm getting at is like it was an uncomfortable thing for me. Like, I'm a kid from the South Side of Chicago, very tight knit neighborhood. Hadn't really gone downtown all that much, maybe here and there, and went to college. That was really the extent of my travels. And doing something that was uncomfortable for me and getting me out of my element really helped me understand that I could face those challenges and face some fears that I had. Like, I was not the most outgoing person, I think, early on in life. And that gave me a great experience to just go out and try something different. So I'd say early on, like, just try something. It's not necessarily moving out of state, but like, try something that makes you uncomfortable. And 95% of the time, you're probably going to get through it, you know, or someone's going to be there to help you out. When you're at these events, you know, I mean, pick 1 or 2 people that don't look too scary to you, right? And go talk to them, or go talk to someone that has a big crowd around them. Like, just go kind of find your way in there. You know, I once heard a quote one time: if you hang around at a barbershop long enough, someone's going to cut your hair, right? Like, just go hang around, just go be there. There, someone's going to talk to you. So
that's so true, because I'm sure in every room when you walk in there and you're nervous, there's a dozen other people there feel the same exact way. And if anything, you make the first move, they're actually grateful you did, and you actually you help someone else, right? That's back to kind of what we're talking about. You're connecting them in a way. So that's great advice. You have, you ended up in your career going and working for Home Partners of America, which became a billion-dollar purchase by Blackstone just in the last 24 months. You started that company pretty early on and called rapid growth is an underestimate in all stretch of the definition. But what was it like kind of diving into that part of your career?
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, it was a lot to learn. It was something that I was, again, uncomfortable. I would say uncomfortable might be the word, because I didn't have experience as an operator. I had to learn. And fortunately, I had people that like Kevin Martin and David Cadillac and Charles Riska, some of the guys that are in the industry that were there, and they were part of a JV that started Pathlate, the property management arm of it. But I don't know, it was learning trial and error, right, at times. But I think I learned quickly that exception management and making exceptions wasn't the way to go. So really just trying to streamline our decision making and having a great operating process and just doing it over and over again made us a lot better, right? And then picking off those few things, like don't try to change everything at once. Try to change a couple of the main things that are impacting the business and really focus in on those is the approach that we had. And just doing those things, it felt like 3.5 years went by in a matter of seconds, honestly, as you're adding 500 doors a month. So
for scale size, for scale kind of bringing that down to conversation's sake, like where was the company at when you started, and where did they leave as far as maybe doors or revenue or some sort of metric that people are going to understand? Or what did they end up selling to Blackstone for?
They sold to Blackstone for $6 billion about 2 years ago. Yeah. When I was there, I got in about door 400. I departed around door 18,000. And I think today they're probably somewhere around like 30,000 doors. I think at the time of the sale to Blackstone, it was around like 25,000 doors or so that they had.
Dude, that is crazy scale. So in 3 years ago,
Yeah.
like that's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was like about that. How do you stay? I have two questions. Like one, just the sales side of it. Like how do you do that? And then how do you keep the train on the tracks? Like that sounds like a mess,
Yeah.
right? Like it sounds very overwhelming.
Yeah, there's some really good leadership there. I'm sure their connections run a lot deeper than mine, from former Wall Street guys. We had a nice connection with Realogy. So we had a unique program. It was a right to purchase program. So essentially the tenants picked a property out of the open market for sale. We would have qualified them to a rental value, and we would have assigned a rental value to those homes we were willing to purchase. Once they picked the home out, we acquired it with cash. We gave them a 5-year option of which they were locked in to what they could buy that property back from us at. They came with a 2-month security deposit, and they guaranteed 1 year of renting from us. If they decided not to stay in the home after a year, they could just move on from it. And that's where, for me, the challenges were trying to get those properties turned. Sometimes they're on 3 acres of a lot, a little bit different than your typical single family property on the rental side. But I just think like the opportunity to give people the ability to get into homes that ultimately their FICO scores and other reasonings why they couldn't purchase a home was a big reason of why we were getting a lot of attraction. And then having that relationship with Realogy and having their 10,000 plus agents out there knowing about our program and pushing the program was ultimately a big opportunity for us to convert a lot of doors over.
And so these are folks, if they never buy the property though, you're sitting there cash flowing, like you guys are hedged, for the lack of better words, right? Like I'm trying to like in the business model here, what's the downside? Like what's the worst thing that could happen in this sort of scenario? I guess prices go up and they're locked into a price where they can buy it at a lower price than the market.
Yeah, that absolutely was happening. Like markets like Dallas, Denver, Seattle, when you think about 2018, 2019, someone might be coming to the table with no money down because that home might be valued at $400,000 and we bought it at $300,000, and now a couple of years later they could execute it like $330,000, So they'd be like 70,000 in the money. And so it was great. I mean, I think we felt that was a win. I mean, ultimately, that's what we wanted to do. We set it up, for that reason. I didn't spend a lot of time on the acquisition transition side. I was mostly like day to day. Property get turned over to us after we purchased it. Here's 14 days, make this thing ready for tenants, get them in there, manage the day to day. And then if they decided to buy, right, it kind of got flipped back to the acquisitions team for that to happen.
Yeah. Any tips that you, in that operations role that you learned, any tips as far as the turnovers go? I mean, you guys had tight timelines. I imagine you're working with 100% vendors. Like anything you learned that you share with us on that front?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that I've learned. I mean, one, treat your people right, because they're working a lot of hours. Be thankful for having good people on your staff. I know it's hard to find folks, and oftentimes that we'll grind it out for years and we'll put in that work and effort to see the final outcome. Making sure that you've got vendors. Listen, we had some really good vendors, and we had some vendors that we found out that were not great and things that they're probably doing illegally to some degree, right? That we had to say, hey, you're no longer going to work with us, right? Kind of double dipping or charging us for something that didn't get done. I'm sure you find it across the board and other, other areas, but yeah, just making sure that you have the right people to manage your turnover and your make ready. We had to set certain standards in terms of, hey, what's the cost? What are we willing to spend on, this, what are we going to spend on that, right? Different from painting to thresholds to, carpeting. We kind of just standardized it across the board, and every market's different. So you'd have to lean in on folks to get some pricing here or there, but really sticking to our guns and letting these folks know that, hey, you might not be getting the best deal you think off of this property, but if I could give you, work for the next 365 days, right, you're going to see value in that. And that really helped us with the economies of scale and getting what we need to do, and also keeping good vendors on hand.
I love how you said that, because a lot of contractors miss that message. They miss the fact that when they're done on Friday, they don't have to go look for more work. They don't have to do advertising. If they can team up with people that have consistent work, that all averages out. Even if it's for less, it averages out usually to more than what they could if they bounce around making 10, 20% more on a job.
For sure. I think one of the biggest things too, like when I look back on it now, we went through Hurricane Irma and I think it was Harvey. Like it hit both Houston and Florida pretty hard back to back. We learned a lot from that, for the one in Florida to help us out with the one in Houston. I think it hit Florida, then Houston. But we had homes that were securitized. Like after a storm, even tropical storms would come through, we'd have to get eyes on properties and make sure that, report back any damages and whatnot. So we definitely learned a lot through that. And the sooner you can have a plan in place for natural disaster, the better off your business is going to be.
Yep. From the lens of a tenant perspective now, when you're doing these turnovers, are there, and I know every market's different, but did you guys standardize, hey, we need to have XYZ, right? Are we patching? Are we painting the whole wall? Like some of these questions that our viewers come to us with, like, hey, I'm doing the turnover. What should I do? Can you talk about maybe some of those things you guys standardized and did every single time?
Yeah, I mean, for us, there was a balance, right? Because the goal of the tenant, so really at move in, when you had a tenant that had the option to buy the home, it was really on safety and maintenance. It was not as much aesthetic. So meaning if I had to paint a wall, it was going to cost more money, and that was going to cost more money for them to ultimately purchase the home back from us. And so it was messaged to them that, hey, we're going to do, really safety work fix up front before you move in, and then cosmetic stuff they could kind of work on if they chose to. And then it became a little bit different SOP when that original tenant moved out, because after they moved out, we were just treating it as a traditional renter. And so then, we standardized like paint. So then we have 2 colors that we don't fully use in all houses. We certainly standardize as much as possible across the board. I don't think we deviated too much.
Ours, we follow the whole clean and safe, clean, safe, and functional. But that ends up sometimes taking you down a rabbit hole of like, man, just doing a lot. And I think you run into 2 issues. You run into a lot of people have expectations of you're competing with the apartment complexes that might standardize to something like Bob's talking about, or you just do too much and people don't care. So there's always that unknown balance that I know we run into, where it's like we want to offer a good product because we want to attract a great tenant, but at the same time, you do all these things. All these things add $20 here, $30 there, $40 there, and I don't know. I know that's something we're always wrestling with, how we could do better.
Yeah, that's a balancing act. That one is tough.
Yeah. So if anyone's got any secrets, please share with us. So, all right, Bob. So, in the next leg of your career, you went and joined this awesome company, which you're going to ask about, but you went into, I'll just preface it, like air filters. Like that sounds so boring compared to what you've been doing. Like how do you make that jump, or what attracts you away? Tell us kind of that transition.
Yeah, and that was some of this feedback I got when I was talking to other people that might have been on our board at Home Partners and other folks like, in the industry, some industry titans, like, hey, maybe smart technology, maybe this, maybe that. For me, when I was at Home Partners, I was having conversations quite a bit with like your Morning Stars, how we would compete with Invitation and American Homes to Rent. Well, it didn't seem like they cared too much that our profile of a home was over $300,000. It was sometimes 4, oftentimes 5 bedrooms, where, those others that I named are oftentimes a smaller community, 3-bedroom property, less cost that they're purchasing at that time. And I had to find ways to drive down costs. And one of the things that I noticed was just how expensive our HVAC maintenance and repair was. It was a leading indicator for us on our overall spend. And so I got to know Thad, our CEO at Second Nature, and I was like, hey, this product really we could benefit from this. We were leaving 4 filters at move-in, only to find out, it was in the lease, tenant was supposed to change them. They just weren't changing filters out. And I just thought it was a great product, and I felt like I could speak to firsthand the issues that I had at Second Nature, at Home Partners, with some of that firsthand. And I could sit down in a call and talk to another operator, like, hey, I've been in your shoes. I've seen this. This product here is going to reduce your HVAC spend by 38%, because we've proven out that throughout some different studies within Second Nature. It to me it was a little bit product driven, a little bit easier of a talk track, a quicker sale perhaps to make versus a smart technology, which might take several months. And then I was looking to get back to that culture. Not that the culture at Home Partners wasn't great. It was just we were grinding. We were going. Securitizations left and right, hurricanes, things popping up. I had a young family, getting to know Thad and the Second Nature folks at the time. A lot of just great people. And ultimately, that's what led me to join the company, was the good people with the product that I believed in.
Well, you started off as Filter Easy at Second Nature now, but there's Filter Easy. Like, tell us this, just a quick story. Like, that, people love stories, right? Like the story of him, if I remember the story correct, started college. Give us a breakdown of how that company started, because I think that's great too.
Yeah, Thad Tarkington and Kevin Berry, our former COO, started the company at NC State. They dropped out of college. I think the short story goes, they talked to their advisor and said, hey, should we drop out of college? And he couldn't really advise them on that, but told them if they didn't take this opportunity, he might run with it himself. So ultimately, they drop out of college. Yeah, they drop out of college. They're even living in like some office, not office, like in the library or somewhere on campus, like sleeping 24/7 in a dedicated boardroom somewhere. They then get on a Shark Tank type thing. They get a little bit of funding from it, and then they're off to the races with a small team. And it was really just focused on air filters, in terms of, like, my parents are on it. Anyone could go today. The Filter Easy brand is back, came back in January. That's predicated on just air filtration to either individual homes on a recurring basis, or we have, and I was kind of helping out, like we have the United Center, the John Hancock building, the old post office, like those buildings are getting filters from Filter Easy.
I use it for my house. Like, it was the best thing, because I always forget to go buy them. Or I always get, at least they're coming in the mail. I pay a little extra, but at least it comes to me at a proper age myself. I always forget. But
I'll tell you this: you might be paying a little bit extra, but you're saving on your energy bill, and that's what tenants don't really realize up front. And I thought I was always pretty good at changing my filter out. and I don't know, maybe it's the South side of me. I'm not like a drink the Kool-Aid person. Like I literally looked at my ComEd bill every month after becoming an employee. We get filters for free, and I saw my ComEd bill down 9 to 12% or $12 to $14 every month. So even if you're paid a couple bucks, Mark, you're gonna recoup that on your energy bill.
Look at that.
Just taking a step back for our listeners. So that's what it is. Like you get filters in the mail every quarter or whatever. Like just one step back. So what is the actual?
My question is explain the program for landlords. Like that.
Yeah.
Approach it that way.
Yeah. So we first started off with landlords. A landlord might charge a tenant X dollars. We're going to charge them a little bit less, so there's some profit opportunity in it. The tenant then gets an air filter shipped directly to their door on the frequency picked by the property manager. And that filter has a date stamp on it. So what that allows you to do, Tom, is, if you still have an HVAC issue or work order that comes through, you tell the technician, hey, do me a favor. First thing I want you to do is take a look at the filter and look at the date. If that date's like months in the past, well, that's already in your lease that the tenant's responsible for it. You're making it as easy as possible for them to change your air filter out by setting on the correct filter, the correct size, the correct frequency, so they don't have these issues. Most HVAC issues happen because of the air filtration, and when the dust kind of like sticks onto the filter, right, you can't push enough air through it, so your system works harder, as you guys probably know. But changing air filters out has a huge impact on air filtrate, on the energy and the lifetime of the system.
I want to just go in detail what you said there, because I don't want to gloss over it. But what you offer landlords and how landlords can utilize it is, they might put in their lease, tenants are responsible for changing out. Tenants actually either build it to amount or add, like we'll talk about it here in a second, like an additional amount the tenants actually pay. You mail it to them, and maybe there might even be a spread there where if you have 100 units, whatever, you're making a couple hundred extra bucks more a month or whatever, or something like that, a couple thousand out. Depending on how big you are on that spread. But I want to point something out here, because filters are a double-edged sword, because think about this. We want them to get changed. Most landlords don't have the ability to go and change them themselves on a monthly basis. As a property manager, we have different things that we're not even able to do it on a monthly basis. But you want to change it. Tenants don't want to do it, but then something goes wrong with the furnace, and the tenants are usually unhappy because of maintenance situations that happen at the property. My heats didn't work, or my heat went out for 2 days. But it goes back to that full circle that most of the time us landlords don't even enforce that part of the lease that they're supposed to be responsible for it. So it ends up being you're preventing the problem from happening in that sense. And our friend Ray Hespen up there in North Dakota has got all these different stats on maintenance and how, and maybe we could link to some of these stuff that he's put out there, but how maintenance, think about this. If your tenant's in there and they only have 2 work orders a year and it inconveniences them, they might move just because of that. So sometimes the way maintenance is responded to, or the fact that it even happens, can be an issue that people move out from. So I just want to kind of set the stage for some of that, because I've seen that to be true.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if I think about my days at Home Partners, it was the HVAC going out and not able to fix it fast enough, and all the stories that come with it. It was either that, or as we call it, organic growth, or as others call it, mold, were the two things that really stuck out to me that people get super heated about. And if we can mitigate that, right, it makes life for our property manager staff a heck of a lot easier. You mentioned Ray Hespen. Ray's awesome. We've got great relationships with the folks at Property Meld, great company up there. We worked together a few years back to do a study with 4 of our partners, mutual partners with Property Meld, just shy of about 8,000 properties located from Boise to Memphis to Richmond down to Atlanta. And that data proved out 18 months after coming on with Second Nature, a 38% reduction in HVAC tickets for those partners. So, Mark, you guys got 1,600 doors, imagine 38% reduction. That leads to a lot of cost savings, a lot of less stress for your staff, better experiences for tenants. And you could get people bored talking about filters, but once you're in it and you kind of see it, you can talk about it all day long like I can now.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. You really smiled the whole episode. Now you're smiling. Now you're talking about filters. It's kind of depressing. But just for our listeners, like the goal here is not to push Bob to sell products, but if it happens, it happens. But the goal is to kind of point out the fact about we're going into September, October. We got to have our heat kicking on, and having that plan in place to make sure that your filters are getting changed out is super important. That's the point we're trying to make here.
For sure.
what is the normal, are you saying every 60 days? Like for someone who is doing it on their own, what can you give it advice? I know it's dependent on multiple variables, but what's a good guiding principle? Like change the filter every.
I would say the guiding principle, depending on where you live, I mean, here in Illinois or up by us here in Chicago, every 90 days is a good standard. As you start pushing yourself further south, stay into like, I don't know, Tennessee, kind of that mid-belt region, every 60 days. And as you go further south in like Arizona, Texas, Florida, 60 days or even 30 days sometimes, depending on how warm it gets in those territories.
Now, Tom, I don't know if you mean or talked about that, but what Bob's company has started doing is, they didn't say started, but you guys have been doing this for years now, is creating this resident benefits package. And that comes out of the multifamilies, kind of ones that might have had something similar, maybe not named the same thing, but where you take your rent might be $2,400 a month, and then you charge the tenant another $40 maybe for this resident benefit package. And part of that package, they get the filters that come in the mail. They might get some sort of credit checking thing. They might get free ability to pay online. So there might be a list of 9-10 things that you get for this $40 value. Now, the spread in it, or the benefit why the owner would do this, why the owner would charge this, would be, all those things that they're providing might cost $20. So now if they got a bunch of units, they could get 20 times that many units times 12 months a year. Just they're trying to add value, but they're able to also make a couple extra bucks for it. So I just took your pitch, Bob. So if you want to add on to that at all, help.
Yeah, no, that was great. Yeah, I mean, stuff like credit building is, 1 in 10 Americans today has their credit being built. Our program, when we roll this out, we think it's very cost effective because it's not just for one tenant when it comes to credit building, ID theft, rewards program that incentivizes tenants to pay rent on time. It's for everyone 18 years or older. So ultimately, we're trying to create a better experience for tenants while they're renting. We're trying to help investors, right, with some of the things that we're doing in terms of keeping tenants in properties longer, right, mitigating HVAC issues. And then myself, and there's a handful of others that have come from the property management world, really we're trying to make life easier for our operators. And so once our product is put in place, we're managing that for our operators. So after the lease is signed, it's second nature that's doing the work behind the scenes, turning on, turning off, right, all the products so that you don't have to go work and do that on your own.
Is Home Partners a client of your guys today?
Home Partners is a client, yep. Mm-hmm.
Are you, give us a ballpark. I know it's a huge number. How many units are you supporting on a monthly basis?
There's quite a bit. Yeah. I don't know that I can give out that exact number, but there's quite a bit. I mean, working with, hundreds of thousands of management companies across the country.
So it's millions of units you probably guys are supporting. I said it, you didn't. So whatever, you won't get in trouble.
I was listening. He's nodding.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So wait, real quick, let's talk about, besides the credit building, are there any other attributes like worth noting to our listeners?
Yeah, $1 million worth of ID theft protection. There's a rewards program that tenant downloads an app, they get a $30 virtual gift card. First month they pay rent on time. With that, they get a $25 gift card. Every month that they're paying rent on time, they get the equivalent of a cup of coffee, or they could build those points up for something else. And then every 9th month, we're providing another $30 virtual gift card that coincides with lease renewal time. We've got insurance, insurance program that essentially helps our operators be 100% across the board and ensuring that there's liability insurance at all times, because we'll track insurance for our clients.
Renters insurance, right? So we're in same page. You're
liability and renters. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So, and that's with your guys' price. So you put that in the package. They might pay. The goal would be that they're getting a discount on it, but the true benefit is for the landlord to that's in place for something stupid happens, because I know a lot of landlords fall short on tracking that.
Yeah, I mean, even I remember today we had a house in Cary that we had purchased for $360,000, and a couple of weeks into the lease, a guy fell asleep on the couch with a cigarette. I think he provided us, notice of insurance when he moved in, but then he dropped it the next day, and we had no insurance to go back on. It was hard to find someone until we got to about 10,000 doors that would track that for us, and so that's just another learn from it. How can we help bring it to market and guarantee that people are covered 100% of the time? Because you can't force a tenant to use your insurance. You got to give them the options. And so we just take over the additional interest, but we have it shipped to our PO box, and then we manage that for you.
At what point does that become, if you're only flipping off $10 or $20 a month, what point do you see people starting to take advantage of this?
We would come in, I think the average cost across the country is right around $30 for the resident benefit package, and you might find 8, 9, 10 different products within there. I think as long as you're offering good value, you could push that number, but it depends on what you're putting into it. We'll work with property management companies. It's not just what Second Nature is bringing to the table. It's, hey, what does GC Realty have that's unique to their business? So a couple examples I have is a client in Arizona. For whatever reason, he's got an 18-foot box truck. If the box truck's available as part of your resident benefit package, you get to use it at no additional cost. Maybe you got to gas it up. I don't know, but at least the truck's available to you. There's some folks that have, a dense area where they have a pizza place in some of their more high-rise retail space, and you can drop the property management company's name, you get 15% off your pizza. So you really build this whole thing up, and depending on what you put into it, the market will dictate what you can pay for it.
That's interesting. So we'll just talk. You're on the show today. You're wearing a purple suit coat.
Yeah.
You guys in our industry have been known for being very out there. Like I remember when you guys first started, you had the elephant suits. Like, what was that kind of culture behind your company? What was your guys' goal with all that early on?
Yeah, I came in. I was right at the end of the elephant suits. To be big elephants all over, but elephants never forget, and so we're there to help you not forget to change your filter. That was the reasoning behind that. And then as we branded to Second Nature, when we wanted to start bringing in more products to the table, not just air filters, I don't know who it was, maybe Andrew, maybe Thad, someone came up with the idea of this purple. And today, you walk into, a conference, or I've been at some of these large national conferences on the multifamily side, you got 4 people in purple suits. It draws a lot of comments, and it, ties it all into the networking, right? Like, just put yourself out there, make yourself, noticeable, and people remember it. So yeah,
you walk into a room with a purple suit, you can't not talk to that person. So
especially when you're 6'4", 300 pounds, and that kind of like stick out, right? So
No, that's awesome. By the time this airs, Mark, I'll already have worn my Orange Bears suits from our one away game we do every year, so I could post that.
Mark, we're gonna have to get you a purple coat for NARPM at one of these points. You're gonna go to the conference.
You bought me that really cool. I don't know what brand it is, but every time I wear the shirt, everyone can't believe the shirt I wear to the soiree with like hot dogs and stuff like that. What brand is that?
The Roback. Maybe Roback will sponsor one of your upcoming shows now. Yeah, Roback, great. I think I have about 10 Roback shirts. So
I just liked it because it had a bunch of Chicago stuff on it. Everyone kept complimenting me. I wore it to church. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, I love it."
That's great.
But
so Bob, what happens next for the company? Does it continue just the steady growth? Are there other like call it initiatives or products coming down the pipeline? Like, give us a little teaser here for the next few years.
There's a lot of different products. I'd say today we kind of get in right at after the lease is signed. I think we'd love to find some products that get us an earlier stage. Maybe a leasing tool. There's also products that we just came to market with on-demand pest remediation. There's a lot of different items that are on the roadmap for down the road that we could add into the resident benefit suite. We've really focused in on SFR over the first couple of years, but we've pivoted to mid-market multifamily. We feel like that's a big area for us. And so I see a lot of growth there over the next couple of years as well.
All right, man. Dude, awesome. Good information, entertaining stories. You ready to wrap, man?
Ready to wrap.
Did you prepare for these questions?
Not really.
There.
But
all right, awesome.
If I don't hit the Chicago question, I'm going to be down on myself. Right? I should be able to answer the Chicago question.
You didn't care about the questions. He's ready for the facts. So that's awesome. I'll take it. That's cool. What's your competitive edge, Bob? How have you been able to be successful in such a networking career, all that stuff when others wish they could?
Yeah, I think the competitive edge is, being confident but humble, treating people the way they should be, and doing things for others because you want to help people out and feel good about it, has helped open some doors for me and at least got me into the room, have some conversations that people I would target.
All right. Don't be a dick. I love it.
There you go.
What is the one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
One piece of advice that I would tell someone.
Yep.
I tell them they got to talk to Mark and Tom, right? When listen to the Straight Up Investor podcast, maybe look at a property manager at GC or some of the other great management companies in the Chicagoland area.
I like it. Good answer. This guy's got his networking down.
Yeah, he's good. He included everyone. He realized, I know Bob good enough that he realized he recommended GC, but at the same time, he almost alienated all of his other property manager clients. So he had to throw that out there. Like, that was pretty good, man. I saw that, that brain. That's cool, man. I'm in. All right, Bob, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Well, I was listening to Ben Smith. I also play golf, not that well, but I think Ben would beat me in golf. That and I really enjoy football. So I was a college and high school football official for over 20 years, and now I am a 5 to 7-year-old flag football coach and a 9-year-old tackle football coach. So before this, I was drawing up some plays for tomorrow night's game.
So Bob, this is crazy. So Chris, my GC, same thing. He's coaching his kid, and it's pretty much all we talk about right now. My kid doesn't play, so I'm living through this. In their league, the coaches pass. So like the game is on him to win, basically. And he's like, yeah, I felt bad. Like I underthrew a kid and we lost. He's like,
that's great.
It's hilarious.
I would say we don't throw that much in the tackle side of it, but on my flag team, we like to rip it up and throw it around a little bit. So thinking about a new play and finding, it's almost like the Kansas City Chiefs, like finding that one funky play and fun play to run for these kids just to make it more fun for them. So tomorrow's our only game under the lights for our 5 to 7-year-old flag team. We're going to pull out a funky play. So,
all right. By the time this airs, though, the other coach won't have heard it, so we're good.
True.
All right. So give us a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you'd recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of Jocko Willemick. Leadership, Strategy, and Tactics is probably one of the best books that I've read. It really helped me out. I don't know. On the networking side, sales side, Gap Selling by Keenan, and then recently I listened on audiobooks was Mr. Schmooze, kind of a fun one. So
I love that book. I made my EA Christine read that. I said, "This is who we got to be."
That's great.
So awesome. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network that you'd highly recommend to other real estate investors as a quality resource.
Oof. I know. There's too many, Mark. I couldn't just name one.
I know. I'd love to ask him this question. Does it make you uncomfortable?
It does. It does make you feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I would, I plead the fifth. There's way too many people. I couldn't just name one.
I don't. We got to let him go with that, Tom?
I'll let it slide.
Thanks, Tom.
He gave us a shout out. We'll just refer to us.
See, that's a salesman. He's so good, dude. Like, he made us feel like get away with that now. You know, watch out, man. He's awesome.
Well, I almost went back to it. I just didn't think I could do it twice. You know, I couldn't shout out the house twice for their own business. Right?
So, Bob, thank you so much. You provide a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? And is there any way they can provide value to you?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about our business, if you're a property manager or investor, you can go to rbp.secondnature.com. If you're an individual, homeowner, or you just have a property, you're an individual landlord with a property, you can go to filtereasy.com and set up the air filtration service directly to your units.
Man, so Second Nature is a huge company, but we're lucky we got head of sales here in the Chicago market. So, or you're high up there. So we got you local. We're lucky.
You know, it's Chicago, hard market to beat, man. It's a great town. Love it.
There we go. All right, Bob, you ready for your favorite part here? Mark, who are we playing for and who's sponsoring the fact?
All right. Today, sponsored by GC Realty Development, who we haven't made the official announcement yet, but Tom is now a GC Realty broker. So welcome aboard, Tom. But playing for GC Realty, $50 gift card to Carrie Mezanowski if myself or Bob get this question right. So let's do it, Tom.
All right, very good. So I was going to do a Brother Rice question, but I knew Mark wouldn't have any help there.
Thank God you didn't.
I was going to say it's like 8 or 9 prep bowls or some crazy number. I was going to do one of those, but let's give everyone a chance here. This one's very doable. No pressure, but between the two of you, I feel you got it. So our guest today, obviously from Mount Greenwood. It's one of the 77 communities in Chicago on the very edge of the city. It touches 4 suburbs. Name those burbs.
Oh, I got this. Mark, do you got it?
Oh, give me 1 second.
Let Mark do it first, and Bobby, you come in and help him.
That's just 4 suburbs.
To be clear, I would not have gotten this, but I think I would have had 3 of these.
What was there?
See if Mark could get one.
All right, Oak Lawn, Evergreen Park,
Yep.
Blue Island, and Elsa.
Alsip's correct. Blue Island's too far.
I'm gonna chime in here, Tom. I'm gonna substitute Blue Island for Marionette Park.
Very confidently and very correct. Nice work, Bob.
I was gonna say Marionette Park. I didn't know if that was a suburb or a neighborhood, or just like a neighborhood name, like a part of Evergreen Park. So
Bob, you're gonna hate me for this, but like this is the ignorant north side of me. Mount Greenwood and Evergreen Park. I forget which one's the city and which one's the burb.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a north side of you, Tom.
Yeah, that is. I know I get slapped down there for saying something like that.
Yeah, I just have to remind people: Beverly, Mount Greenwood. That's the 2 you gotta lock in down there. I think on the south side.
all right, Jerry Mizowski, we got you a $50 gift card coming brought to you by GC Realty. Bob, awesome, man. That's awesome. So, want to thank you for coming on here today. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, you need to check out Build Your Team. There's a whole bunch of resources. If you're getting ready to buy a place, invest in your next place, maybe you had somebody on your team that they did have a good experience with, you want to hire somebody new or get someone else on your team. These are all awesome people that Tom and myself and tons of our listeners have worked with. So check out straightupchicagoinvestor.com, Build Your Team. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Tom. And listeners, we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
That's all.